Good morning and welcome to this morning's Berardi and Coke. It is the fine time of 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. Still coming round. Still got me coffee to finish. How are you this morning, Karl?
I've been in better states. I think I'm worse this week than I was last week, to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't even go out.
We are expecting a special guest to join us who's having some difficulties. As to the comments that we've had already, no, it wasn't me. I'm not straightening my hair and it's not me running late. So we'll get into an intro and hopefully we'll be able to bring somebody in with us.
Sweet.
Hi, this is Don Matteo and you are listening to the Ought to Know Better podcast. Let's do this.
You look like fucking Brolin, you're a Leeds eating bastard. Look like some sort of fucking weird floating head. No. The utensil played a bit, innit?
I mean, I feel a bit right, dickhead.
Nothing spectacular, really.
It is underway. Changing that is underway. Please be assured.
Yeah, because that was completely not, what he's saying there. Spectacular. It was brilliant. It's brilliant. Good.
Right. Okay. So first win of the season. How are we feeling?
Jesus, you know what? I feel a bit bipolar because we were here blasting the team last week and trying to pick out good bits and try and make a half-hour pod out of it, and we ended up doing an hour and 10 minutes. And this morning I'm kind of ecstatic, and I don't know what to say. Like it was chalk and cheese.
So what you're saying is you haven't learned from Bielsa at all of don't be too high after a win and don't be too low after a defeat. We've forgotten.
We've totally blanked that now. That's in the bin. We're been back to just normal Leeds fans now again. It was what do you say about it? Like, it was a great performance. I thought the first. Again, I always seem to do it because we always seem to be on top for the first 10, 20 minutes and never do anything with it. And I kind of looked at the clock and I was like, geez, 17 minutes gone there now. How's this going to go? Wednesday are starting to get a feel for the ball a little bit. And I thought, yeah, it's probably going to go like that considering the state we're in. But I was happily proved wrong, which was absolutely brilliant.
Do you know, so I saw... We'll come on to the lineup and the game itself in a moment, but in the build-up, I saw Farke being spoken to. I don't know if you've seen any of that, and I saw Danny Rowe being spoken to as well. And I think they were being coy and they were being cautious as you'd expect a manager to be, especially in light of it being a Yorkshire derby. One of the stats that really surprised me, and I don't know if you'd seen this, and I don't have it in front of me, so I'm doing it from memory, I'm afraid, was that. I don't know if it's just been in the league, but they've not been beaten at home this calendar year, other than us, and we've done it twice.
Yeah, I saw that stat come up. Like when Roll came in, they'd only lost 1 in 10 or 11 at home since he came in just there after Christmas, and both of them were us, and both of them were 2-0 wins.
You take that. It's really strange, isn't it? In one of those against a local side that hates us. For me, Wednesday are one of the bigger sides. Probably closest to us in Yorkshire for me. But one of those teams around us, Doncaster, Bradford, Huddersfield, that love to hate us and love to beat us. It were kind of a run of the mill game, really, wasn't it? Nothing really to get too upset or concerned about, really.
I would very much agree there. I thought the only worrying thing that I saw was that left winger had Bogle on toast for quite a bit. In that first half, he was ball watching Bogle. I'm not tagging that as a new nickname for him, but
you started the League One Liam on him already.
Yeah, but I haven't dropped him down a division. I've just said he ball watches. That's all. He chose to come to us. You know what I mean? This is the cross you bear. He was caught ball watching quite a bit, and then when he wasn't caught ball watching, he was very. It seemed like he was a bit. I'm not criticizing the guy. Obviously, he got booked, and then he seemed to be.
Are.
I am a little bit, but he seemed to be. When he got booked, he seemed to be a lot more composed when he was going 1-on-1 with their left winger. But before he got booked, he was getting absolutely rinsed, and your man had the beating of him nearly every time. And I was just thinking to myself this morning, I was like, he's the only one out of their squad that I would have in our squad, not our team, straight away. He was actually quite good. If there was players in front of him doing the runs that our forward players were doing, they could have easily had at least 2 goals. They had 2 good opportunities in the first and second half. So, no, I thought the lineup was it was what we were kind of expecting. Pirro couldn't stay in there. The mobility isn't there, and Joseph's not.
Just before we get into the starting lineup and so on, we will bring in our guest so that we can discuss it between us as well, because he's now in the green room. So I'll be bringing him in now, and I hope he's ready. Good morning, Big Lou. How are we doing?
Morning. Yeah, I'm not naked. I'm ready to go.
Oh, thank Christ for that.
A laptop behaving now.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
It's not that he wasn't there. I promise everybody, he was there. He sent me the evidence of the laptop just restarting itself and shitting itself as it would due on. So, so first question, Big Lou. Why do you hate Aaronson so much?
I just saw something quite profound on Twitter that is a bit deep, but it's sort of right. It's like you can't change history, but you can change the future. And I think he's got this sort of weird, steely determination about him that I hope he carries throughout the entire season. You know, he sort of made a decent start with a couple of goals, should be 3 really, but there we go. But positive signs really. If he stays fit, he is just really good. But he's sort of going to be like our scapegoat Georginio really this season. Like as soon as he loses the ball, people will, lose their heads, which he did do a little bit in the first half yesterday. But I think Aaronson's pretty good for the Championship, and I'm pretty pleased. with him. It's a good little finish last night as well, wasn't it?
No. I think in that position, I think he had 2 defenders in front of him and the keeper to beat, didn't he? And he shifted it to his left and he kind of lifted it over an outstretched leg. And you're thinking, you know what, that's a bit of composure. And I think when you look at some other, we'll come on to them, but if you look at some of the other chances that we had through the game with a little bit more composure, we could have quite easily doubled our score, if not a bit more. So, no, fair point. So we will look at the starting lineup then. So we'd had a little bit of a tete-a-tete on our main pod about whether it's going to be Aaronson, whether it's going to be Pirro, and I think a lot of that was not what we'd prefer, what we were trying to second guess Farke was actually going to do. I thought he was going to stick with Pirro. I don't think Pirro's particularly effective in the 10, but I thought he was going to start him there, and he didn't. He started Aaronson. So we've touched on him slightly, but so Karl, you were about to set off, and I so rudely interrupted you. Starting lineup and thoughts. Were it pretty much, including the Aaronson piece, pretty much as you expected?
I think, bar we didn't know whether it was going to be Pirro or Aaronson. We all kind of had our opinions that it was. We wanted Aaronson in there. He was more mobile. He's got a lot to prove, so he's going to have that determination to want to drive at players and stuff like that. So we were kind of all hoping for that, and I think the rest of the team kind of picks itself at this stage in the day. Until other players start coming in, that's without doubt our strongest 11 at the moment. I think Aaronson, there was a few times last night where he got knocked off the ball quite easily. It's not a criticism. The 2 boys that did take the ball off him were about 2 foot bigger than him, but you can see he is trying. He's got a long way to go, I think, with majority of the fan base, but he's definitely going about it the right way. And I genuinely don't think Joseph has done anything wrong enough to lose a spot. Bar scoring last night, that was a complete performance for me.
Yeah, cool. Just again to touch on the Aaronson piece, just at the end of the game, the Sky presenter said something like, and he's returning the faith of the fans or something like that. And I'm sat there and I'm thinking, this is the first time he's not been booed onto the pitch this season. He's got a long way to go before any of that's happening. So fares around the starting lineup. Lou, I'm just going to read to you the names we had on the bench. So we had Byram and Cairns and Chambers and Crew and Darlow and De Bayo and Joffe and Pirro and Rothwell. And I recognise that there's potentially somebody else having a medical today. We've already signed another that wasn't eligible for this game, but I think was in the ground. I think we're all conscious, aren't we, that that's just in no way good enough for a championship season.
Yeah, and Bamford doesn't even make that bench better, does he, really?
Well, not with one hamstring.
So... But I think the depth is the only worrying thing. That team on paper looked really good last night, and it performed. And I think that was really, really, really important last night, because when you win your third game after, well, probably one disappointing draw, you'd say a point away at West Brom is not the end of the world, but that gets us straight up there with a win. It puts the League Cup result behind us. A win, a good performance. We've only had one league game at home. You can, with the signings and stuff coming in, you can just start looking at it a little bit more positively. I mean, with the sorts of deals that we're doing as well, like this Ramazani looks like the sort of player we need in how diverse he is, or how diverse he looks, shall I say, as we've not seen him play. But Solomon looks like a class above for the championship if he stays fit. So all of a sudden, I think the bench becomes less of an issue, and you start looking at the depth you've got. And if you do lose, say, Aaronson for 4 or 5 games, and you have Solomon coming in potentially as the replacement at 10 or something like that, all of a sudden you've got the depth you need to carry on winning or carry on staying unbeaten in the championship. The worry would be last night is if we get in a position where we do get a couple of knocks, and then you're relying on young lads that haven't had a lot of first team football. So it is concerning, but it feels like much like last season, we're leaving it late for our transfer business, and I'm feeling a lot more positive about the names we're being linked with and the replacing what we need. I was pretty hacked off once the Georginio thing went through, and I know it's sort of you can look at it in different ways, and it's a release clause, and it's not the owner's fault or whatever. Those things hurt, and when you're selling 100 mil worth of players and you haven't had a lot come in, and you've got 19, 20 players in your squad, you are worried and you are hacked off. I'm sick of being sort of gaslighted by fans. It was like, oh yeah, you're all moaning. It's like moaning's not allowed. It's like sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes you have to say out loud that it isn't good enough, and you can't always just be positive and it's definitely going to happen, because we know that it might not. It's nothing's guaranteed, especially with transfers. We've all seen how they can go pear-shaped, and it looked like at one point we weren't guaranteed to bring anyone in, and it looks like the ball's rolling a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, agreed on all of that. And I think, I've had quite a large amount of stick for my views over the course of the summer, and being told, well, no, you've got to wait until the window closes. And it's like, why? I'm not entirely sure why I need to wait for the window to close to judge. I will change what my judgment is if they bring in somebody that I think is going to improve us. I don't have to set anything in stone. It's not like I think
that's important. Last night was really encouraging with the performance and the win and everything. But I feel like last season we didn't look good probably until sort of game 8 maybe, or something like that. So maybe in hindsight, when we reflect on this, we'll look at us as a slightly better prospect than we were last year. And if we do get a couple more signings, then maybe we can get a few more points on the board earlier. But until then, you're right to reserve judgment. And I've said a few times, if we don't get that depth and we get a few injuries, and even if we don't, we didn't look great in the first couple of games. We were leaking goals, and I was thinking, I've said it 12th place and things like that, and we won't even get playoffs. When you all of a sudden get 3 or 4 quality players in the door, it completely changes the makeup of your team and what you're capable of doing. But if that doesn't happen, if, say, for instance, we don't get 2 or 3 more signings, I don't think a lot will change. I still think we'll lose enough games to not be certainly in the automatic promotion race. So it's really important. This next 10 days is going to give everybody a lift. And I think certainly in that game against Borough, I think maybe the players' heads were shot about Georgie leaving, a big character leaving the dressing room. And it was, and I haven't often said this, I've seen Leeds get battered loads of times. Like losing to Borough 3-0 at home, albeit in the League Cup, it was disgraceful performance. It was horrendous to watch. Like it was, I don't even know what to compare it to. It was just awful. So
it felt like Palace. It felt like the Palace game when it had been all right. You know, in the first half against Borough, I didn't think we were too bad. We were in the game, and the starting lineup was weird, but then he had to protect the players that he needed for the league because that was the priority. So the starting lineup there saw a lot of changes. Theirs did as well. I think we changed 8, and I think they changed 7. Yeah. So it's not like we were the only ones making the changes. But at half time, I was fairly okay with the way that things had gone. And then I think in 16 minutes, you've gone from 0-0 to 3-0 down. Yeah. And it was just abject. And we just weren't in the game at all. And they were just running through on us.
But again, on reflection, even a week on from it or whatever, I'd rather have this adversity early because you have the chance to put it right. So now we're in a position where
having a QPR last season, you mean?
Don't bring that up. Fucking PTSD, that shit.
When it matters, like in the last, I mean, that horrendous stat that came out after the Borough game that Farke's only led us to 2 wins in 11 or whatever it was, like considering last season as well, was just awful. It doesn't look great. So I think to put that behind us now, 5 points on the board, a good win last night. That league, being out the League Cup, nobody really cares about now. It was the manner of the performance. Nobody really cares about the Carabao Cup. We aren't going to win it. That's not the point. Farke would have wanted momentum. He would have wanted performances from at least 7 of the 11 players, and it just wasn't there. And it just didn't feel great. I mean, like when you look at people like Joffy and stuff like that, and you've got them on the bench. I mean, what even is he as a footballer really now? He's just completely off the boil. You remember what Phil Hay used to say about Joffy's, where we used to be really excited when he come on as an impact sub in the Premier League, and he's never seen a reception like it at Ellen Road for a young player. And sky was the limit, and you can say injury maybe, but he hasn't really gone anywhere. And I don't get excited when he comes on the pitch now. I mean, if he comes on with 5 minutes to go like last night or whatever, and we're 2-0 up, then fine, but I'm not expecting him to come on and change a game or create that bit of magic. I just don't think. Maybe good for a loan, maybe Joffy now, but
yeah, and he did actually do that if you remember, didn't he? He combined with Raf to get us a very, very important goal.
Oh yeah, the Norwich goal, yeah.
So he has had that impact in the past, but it's almost like it's stalled that much.
The assist as well against Brighton for Struijk.
Yeah. So it's one. Yeah. So it is a bit of a strange one that it looked like he had all of the makings of somebody that could really go somewhere, and then it's kind of just stalled. I think you're right. I think a loan is a good shout.
Not that he set the world alight. He went to Sunderland, didn't he? He didn't really do much.
I think he needs to find a position because he's been played absolutely all over the shop, and that's probably to the detriment of his learning at that age. Like
left back, maybe.
Well, look, Bogle started as a forward, didn't he? Didn't start as a right back.
Did Gary Kelly?
Yeah, Gary Kelly was a striker and he started at right back. So, I think he just needs to find a position and make it his own. Like you said, Lou, at a loan would be perfect.
Well, that's what I mean. None of us know what he is. When you think of Joffy, what do you think his position is? He probably doesn't even know. I mean,
that's what I mean. Yeah.
When he does these videos, I think he'll probably say just forward, but that's pretty vague, isn't it? Really,
I think inside forward is probably his position, but that's not a position that we need somebody in. So it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. So like you say, when he does come on, it's like Joffrey, can you go in and do that for the last 10 minutes, please? And it's like not his position. It's like, yeah, just run around, close the ball down, keep the ball. Like,
yeah,
you're not
do football
you're not
stuff.
impressing anyone doing that, really, are you? You're not going to get anywhere.
No.
And how many times have we seen it with players like having a run in the team and how important it is? It's important to every footballer. Like Firpo, Touchwood, has just been completely different since he's played loads of football and had a good run without injury. But when he doesn't, he, much like Bamford, his entire career, looks like he's never played football before. Like, and Firpo, as a defender, obviously you're a bit more exposed, but in the attacking half, when you do things like what Bamford does, it's just incredibly. I don't know. You just think, okay, fair enough. But if you've got blokes running through you at left back and crossing the ball in for teams to score every 5 minutes, then you're a bit more exposed. But I don't know about you boys. I thought Bogle was much better one-on-one last night. He got done a couple of times, but I think he had a bit more about him last night. And I think what Farke wants is what Firpo and Bogle are giving him going forward. And I think if you've got Rodon and Struijk and Ampadu filling in and stuff defensively as well, it works. Last night worked. Rodon has taken this many games to look anything like he did last season, to be honest. So that's pretty positive. But I still think there are potentially, against some better sides, I think Burnley will tell us a lot more about where this team's at, because you'd say with what they've done so far, albeit early doors, they are going to be a good team. They are, I mean, barring a disaster, they're going to be top 2, aren't they? And if we can look solid against them and not leak loads of goals, then I think we'll have more of an idea of what we can do. Like, I don't know about you boys, I don't think Sheffield United particularly scare me in terms of what they've done so far.
Yeah, I think it's Luton that I'm looking at, and they've not started well. But what I mean is they've not really changed the makeup of their side from promotion or relegation, and I think I'm looking at them as potentially somebody that's going to do something. They have lost 1, drawn 1, so they're not setting the world on fire. But I think if they get on
they've got some injuries as well, I think at the moment, like defensively, but they've got a pretty decent looking front three that I think is going to probably do a lot of damage at some point.
They have lost.
You're right, Burnley.
Yeah, Ross Barkley is gone to Villa, and he'll be a big loss for Luton Town.
He will.
Yeah.
That, like you were saying, Gilly, though, they haven't really changed the fabric of their side, so they will eventually get back into the stride of like playing in the Championship. They're only away for 1 season, and they tried to implement what they do in the Championship in the Premier League. It didn't work. They had to try and adapt. But now they have to go back to doing what they were doing in the Championship. So, exactly like ourselves last year, we got off to a terrible start, and look at how we did. Like that, it could be very much the case for Luton Town as well. But I like, just touching on a few points there. I like Louis was saying about Bogle and that, and Firpo. They are starting to do what Farke wants, but. You mentioned, Lou, that if we go up against a Burnley or someone like that, they may get very exposed. Like, what do you do in that scenario then? Do you just sit with a back 4?
That's the test, isn't it? I think, like, tactically, we probably have to do something different. I mean, a couple of times last season where people like, Farke's one-dimensional, whatever, There was a game last season against Borough where we went 3-1 or 3-2 up or something like that, and it was like, okay, so now because this team are dangerous attacking wise, if we get our noses in front, we're going to change to a back 4 or a back 5 and just not park the bus, but just be a little bit more compact. I think if we get our noses in front against Burnley, I think that's the sort of thing we'll see and go, okay, Bogle, or even just Bogle, I need you further back. Maybe not making so many forward runs, because that was the thing with Ayling. Ayling, when we want to say his legs had gone or he wasn't good enough for Leeds anymore or whatever you want to say, he was making those forward runs and then he just couldn't get back. Every bang average winger or not in the Championship, if they're quick, they can still do damage. It doesn't matter. And Bogle is quick, but I think the key will just against the better teams just to be a lot more compact and a lot less sort of free flowing in attack. I think that's what we'll probably see. Maybe not from Firpo, because I feel like even though he's been good, he's sort of got a mind of his own still.
I think it's interesting that you say about Burnley, though, because if you look at, I mean, they've scored 9 and conceded 1 in the 2 games they've played in the league so far this season. You know, they scored 4 and 5. And if you look at the shape of I don't know if you got to see it, but when they played against Cardiff, they let Cardiff have the majority of the ball. Now, that's what we'll do. But what they did is they won the ball back and they attacked immediately, very direct, and they cut them to ribbons. And that's what worries me, is we'll be in a position where we've got the ball, there's a turnover, they've got the ball, and they're running at us, and then what do we do? And it's about making sure that systemically, from a setting up perspective, that we're prepared for that, because they scored 5 goals from it. If you look at the momentum in that game,
the counter attack last night was brilliant. Joseph looked for that pass straight away. Yeah, because
the touch from Dan James is brilliant.
Amazing. Last season his finishing was good as well. He's clearly done a lot of work on that, hasn't he? But Joseph looked for that pass straight away, and it was decisive, and it was a brilliant pass. James is going to be quicker than anyone he's playing against in that league, so that pass is always on, and I love that of how decisive it was. Brilliant pass. You know, what other striker in our team is making that? Piru maybe, but Joseph was still quite deep. You know, like it was.
He was.
It was brilliant.
You mentioned Pirro there. I thought Pirro had 2 great opportunities last week against West Brom, and he chose the wrong ball both times. There was one where he could have put Dan James in. James was running between 2 players, and he tried to play the ball in that gap in between the 2 players and James, where James was making the run through the middle. He should have played it on the outside rather than down the middle. And I think that's the difference with Joseph. I think he can see that pass a little better and quicker probably than Pirro can, even though you know, don't get me wrong, Pirro has played in Aaronson for his first goal at Ellen Road, and it was a great little dink into him and whatnot, but you need a bit more than that when it comes to
So I'm a bit split on that. I think Pirro, I don't think it was a great pass. I just think Aaronson's got such quick feet, such good feet, that the defender, and he managed to get a shot away. I think he just sort of he planted it between his feet. I mean, it's obviously the right pass to play it into the attacker, but I don't know. It was all about the finish, I think, that one. And Piru is not decisive enough. And I think, yes, he can finish, but yes, Joseph's missed a couple of chances, but in general, he is a good finisher and a better striker, and we look like a better team with him. But the uncertainty that around the whole Bamford thing is Joseph only playing at the moment because Bamford's not fully fit or whatever, and this before his hamstring injury that he's got now. I mean, I'm just dreading that Joseph is actually second choice, but he's just starting at the moment. I'm dreading that, to be honest, because that touch, take it away from the defender. I know he's put it over the bar last night, but he's making those chances and situations for himself. So he is going to score goals, and he's going to have loads of space against some of these teams in there. If Joseph's getting touches in the box, he's scoring loads of goals. You know. Yeah. I mean,
I agree. That's the one that I was referring to before about just having that bit of composure. Is if he's not trying to take the lever off it at that point, he's just slotting it in, isn't he?
He's just trying a bit too hard, I think, at the minute, like to impress early. Natural for a young player, but because he's just got his chance, really, hasn't he? And all we really had to go on last season was his couple of goals he scored at Chelsea in the FA Cup, which was really good for him. And everyone after that was saying, I mean, quite simply, he has to be starting. I do wonder, actually, looking back with how bad our run was towards the end of the last season, how different it might have been if Farke did say at that point, right, Joseph is starting up top for us for the rest of the season, because, you know, his pressing, his ball retention and his finishing was just way better than anything else that was happening at that time.
I agree. And that's the worry, really, isn't it? Because, as you say, is he starting at the moment because of availability and fitness of other players, or because he's the first choice?
Yeah.
I'd like to think now. And I'd like to think now that he's first choice, because I think he's our best option right now.
Maybe that's why he's trying too hard. Maybe that's why he feels like he needs to get a few goals, on the board early because he'd be on the bench again soon.
But you know what the thing?
The concern I've got is the fact that we didn't see him at the end of last season. Parker clearly didn't trust him to put him in at that point, and will he go from not even trusting him to give him more than 10 minutes at the end of the game to trusting him to be his starting 9 for the season? And that for me is the worry. Sorry, Karl, I spoke of you.
That's okay, man. No, I think I agree with both of you. I think it's his to lose now at the moment. I don't think if Bamford comes back in, he goes straight back in. I think Bamford's going to be a bit part player as long as Joseph is doing everything that he's doing and continues to do it and just adds goals. We saw with Bamford for large periods of his career with us that he went, 8-9 games without a goal, but he was still playing and still doing a job, and we were all kind of singing his praises. I think Joseph is
not all. Bryn hates him and always has.
Yeah, okay. Well, Brent's a special case. Like
Bryn, not Brent.
Bryn, excuse me, is a special case. I think Farke is going to see that and understand that goals will come for Joseph, and I think the longer you leave him on the pitch, the more chance there is of that happening. I think he's got a bet. He's probably going to off last night. He's definitely going to create more chances for the players around him and himself than I think Pirro or Bamford would in the same position at the moment.
Not just his assist last night, but I think when Joseph plays, the passing of the team seems to be a lot slicker. Last night, the passing was really slick, and I'm not saying Georginio was bad for this, but when Leeds were having a bad day last season, for instance, and you have Bamford and Georginio on the pitch where it's bouncing off their shins, particularly Bamford, so many moves would break down with him. When you're getting the ball up the pitch, you're playing some nice passes, and then the ball will just bounce off his shin and go out of play or whatever because he's a little bit out of form and he's not into the game or whatever. It's really frustrating. I don't think you get that with Joseph. I think he's a little bit more intense and just technically better. So, like, if your Farke's teams primarily always have really good passing teams, passing players, and I don't think Bamford is that. And Joseph gives you that up front as well, with layoffs and things like that aren't just, like I say, just exploding off his ankle or whatever. It's just,
as I say.
I mean, he's not even playing, and I've been laying into him a lot. But I feel like we play better when Bamford plays, and it's like, but do we though?
I mean, it was definitely true at points. Absolutely, I would stick my neck out and say we're definitely true. In Bielsa's promotion season and then finishing ninth season, we definitely played better with him.
But that was ages ago.
It was ages ago. It was, and I think but it's one of those where we've got to accept that maybe his physique just won't allow him to do the same job that he used to do, and he's not in a position where he's capable enough to adapt his game now at 31, 32, to be able to overcome that. He was very, very mobile player, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He when they did the speed checker thing, he was the quickest player in the squad on that day. And if you take that away from a player, especially at this level, the point that you made about pace on the wings at this level is always going to result in chances and defenders backing off and playing in a way that they don't want to play. You're making them play that way. Bamford had that, and he would occupy a defence and he would create space for others. We're now looking at Joseph to do that, not Bamford, because Bamford doesn't seem to have that. And it might.
He obviously had his point last season, didn't he? He had his point last season, like as in he when he scored that worldie at Peterborough, it was what he did kick on after that. He did score a few goals and he was playing with confidence. But then he fell off again towards the end of the season. I think when he does that, you go, right, Bamford's your man. Let's see if he gets a bit of momentum. And Phil Hay always used to bang on about him scoring goals in clusters, and it is true. The stats do speak for that. But I think the manager needs to be at a point where he's like, okay, so this run is over. So let's get someone back in, and for a team that we need to be consistent over the course of the season and not have those blips, I think definitely Joseph is our man to deliver consistency, because even if he isn't necessarily scoring, there's plenty of players in that midfield that will score this season, particularly Aaronson, as he's already shown. the only thing for me is I sort of think last night is our best team currently. I don't see yet where Ramazani will fit in because of people. Like people will always say, "Oh yeah, well he plays instead of Dan James," but does he? Like
not for me. Absolutely not for me. He plays instead of Aaronson for me.
Yeah, I think maybe just sort of leak him in sort of via an impact sub and just sort of see.
I think that'll be the case. He's got to earn his way into a team, hasn't he? This team is starting games and has now won. He's unbeaten in 3 in the league and has won a game away in a Yorkshire derby. You don't change that.
2 clean sheets.
Yeah.
2.
So, you don't change that unless you're after. And I think anybody coming in now has to earn their way in. But what we can see is we can look to the bench and go, do you know what? There's some actual first team players on it. It's not 2 keepers and 3 children, which is definitely a benefit.
Imagine the scenes if Melier gets injured and Alex Cairns gets called onto the pitch. Darbo's going, what?
So to the actual game.
Yeah.
We've not spent much time talking about the actual game. Just want to look up here in terms of the momentum.
I was waiting for this graph.
Is there anything surprising? I think the thing for me, right at the end of the half, okay, we've scored a goal halfway through the half, and we are absolutely dominating them. They can't get out, and you can see in the momentum graph there that bit before half time that we had a lot of the ball, and we had it in good areas as well. It wasn't just passing it around in defence; we were pinning them right back. And I'm thinking, do you know what? We need to make hay while the sun shines here, because if we get to half time and it's only 1-0, we're going to cause ourselves issues, and we did.
Yeah.
So the shape of that first half, Lou, I'll come to you first. The shape of the first half, we got a goal halfway through, and it was a good goal. It was a good setup, and a good finish, and we've done well there. Was it what you expected, and would you have preferred that we played in a slightly different way?
I think they had a lot of men behind the ball, and I think the difference to what we've seen, and Portsmouth did that to a certain extent, especially considering they spent quite a bit of the game ahead. I think we've just got Aaronson with quick feet is really important to unlock defences when we're playing against teams that park behind the ball. I think that's really important. Like obviously quick passing has helped. But I think that sort of thing is a real key to beating this low block that we've struggled with, where we were passing it back with Melier. And I think getting the ball into him last night made us just a little more progressive, and it made us not necessarily pass the ball around the back to try and sort of, get round them. We were trying to attack a little bit more centrally. So I think that's the massive difference, and that having Georgie should have been a lot better at doing that sort of thing as well. Sort of a player with a little bit of unknown quality, didn't necessarily do it as much. And we are still going to get loads of teams that are going to just sit behind the ball, especially at home. So I think that's pretty important, like depends how like fan bases like Sheffield Wednesday, they wouldn't have probably liked their team sitting behind the ball. Last season was about survival for them. So when they came and did what they did at Ellen Road, they were buzzing with that. But everybody's talking about Danny Roll being this fantastic manager with playing great attacking football. I mean, that got stunted last week pretty much straight away by Sunderland. So, are they that good at that? So I wouldn't say they're a massively defensive team, Sheffield Wednesday, and we are going to play against much more defensive teams. But what I'm most pleased about is the fact that I feel like we can unlock defences a little more this season. Those games, what do you reckon? We had 10, 15 games like that last season where we just didn't look like we were going to score all day, but we had the ball the entire game. I think we were just a little bit more diverse in our attack. We were willing to try lots of different things. But yeah, so
I just want to touch on that as well. Like we had a chat about how on a previous pod how the movement in front of the defence didn't happen essentially. And up until last night, I noticed that when we were playing around at the back, it was like a tactic perhaps maybe that they had always 3 players kind of pressing us at any one time. But we played like a a 3v5, trying to play it out from the back. So we had the two centre backs, and then at any one point there was always Firpo, Ampadu or Gruev, or when we moved it across, Bogle would obviously drop in, and we were trying to play it out using movement rather than just getting the ball to Ampadu and hoping that he can find a pass. And I thought the movement was far, far better when we were trying to play it out of defence. The pass backs didn't seem as negative as they did in previous games. Like against West Brom, when we started playing it back to keep the ball and play it safe, there never seemed to be any kind of positive out ball with it, where the movement was good enough in front to create something like we've seen last night.
Being in midfield plays a massive part in that, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like,
and I
think he did a great job at centre back last year, and it is good that he can play there when we need him to, which ended up being half the season. But he's a much better midfielder. I think he's a positive player, and he will try passes. He's absolutely quality. I thought he was brilliant last night.
He was fantastic last night. Him and Gruev. I thought Gruev's more advanced role was absolutely brilliant last night. When he gets on the ball and he starts running at players, I still don't know how to describe how he runs. It just looks weird.
It does look weird. Is how I see.
In real life, it's quicker than it looks on telly. On telly, it looks like he's literally running in treacle, doesn't it? But
it does. And this is an interesting point from Bryn as well. Ampadu and Gruev starting together had never won a game before last night.
Ooh,
crazy that, really.
Stat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have played. I mean, how many games have they played together in midfield? Can't be that many.
No, not that many, because if you consider when Gruev came into the side, it was it was kind of November last season, wasn't it? And Ampadu went into defence in January because that's when Struijk got injured. So not that many really, but still, it was a start. And the longer that goes on for, the more it might play on their mind. So it's good to just sweep that aside, isn't it? I thought Ampadu played really well as well, and I think he's important.
Stuff like that. It's the blue kit's cursed. We won't wear it.
We just wear yellow all the time now.
We just nip those in the bud straight away.
Yeah. So Karl, going into the second half, then. Yeah. I mean, I can bash the momentum start back up here. I mean, you look. If you actually look, it looks like very much like we. Oh no, sorry. Hang on. Before we get too much into that, I've got a question for you. Did Dan James mean to finish in that way? Did he mean that, or has he spooned it and it's gone in anyway?
It did look like a stuff, didn't it? He did stuff it.
Yeah, I think he's gone to actually lob the keeper, and it's kind of got him.
It looked even better that way, though. I thought.
Absolutely. I mean, they all count. I celebrated it as well as a thunder bastard into the top corner, but I just wondered what you thought.
Oh no, that's I was going to say it looked like a scuff shot. When you hit like a pitching wedge and you think, that's going straight, and then it takes that little spin, and you're like, oh no, shit. But it was one of them.
Better than watching goals like that sometimes, especially when he gets away from the defender so quickly, who's just absolutely nowhere near him. And someone like James is probably not getting as much time as that in the Prem. He's not gassing as many fullbacks in the Prem, but. True. That extra time he's got when he gets away from a player allows him to have a little bit more time for the finish. And it was a bit of a scuff, but it still looked neat, didn't it?
Yeah.
He knew that looked good because he enjoyed that one in front of the fans. He was like, might have been a scuff, but here we are. Come on,
Karl. And just one other point before I move off first half that I also forgot about. And I don't know how, because I won money off this. Willy Gnonto and the way that he was playing looked like he were going to get himself into bother. And now I think a lot of that comes down to the referee not giving things where he's genuinely being fouled and don't give anything.
Yeah. I hate him.
Yeah, but as soon as he's done that, you know that he's getting booked, don't you?
Yeah. But
I wouldn't even play that 5 minutes in. I would I'm definitely putting money on him to get booked today.
Yeah, there was a point in the second half where he got fouled and he just set up and he just went like that. And I was just sitting there going, be careful, Willie. You can't take the piss out of the ref like that. He'll definitely give you a second yellow. You know what I mean? But
Willy Gnonto's a weird one. I think he started pretty well and he was really good last night. But part of me thinks if he had one of those nice release clauses, it'd have been gone ages ago. In this window, and he's sort of like, all my mates have gone, but I'm still here.
I did like the interchange between him. Yeah.
You know, we've not got past the closure of the window yet. There's potential for him to still go. Now, the good thing about that is we are linked with some capable forward players, but I absolutely don't want him to go. Not at all, especially on the strength of last night. That's exactly what we need from him.
It falls apart again. If he, I think anybody now, you could make a case for it not being. We can't sell anyone else now. Not really.
No.
You know, I spoke to my dad about this last night, and he said if Struijk looked great last night, he said if Fulham bid 50 million for him or something weird like that, then you have to take it or whatever. But it's not going to happen, and we don't have enough players to sell now. I mean,
no.
You could offload one of the young lads to you know, a League One team on loan or something like that, as long as you've got 2 or 3 players coming in. But you sell a big player for us now, and it's not
curtains,
panic stations. It's meltdown again.
Yeah.
Like
it's wheels off. It definitely is wheels off.
Yeah, like after selling Georgie, winning was pretty important. But yeah, I mean, I melted down. I was really annoyed to see him leave. I just didn't think it. Like what is one more season with somewhere that you're happy? And seeing the quote
especially that age.
Yeah, at that age, and going to being at Leeds, playing in front of an incredible fan base who have been playing well for the last couple of seasons or whatever, and he's got to go and play at Brighton now. It's going to be a massive shock to his system. Like it's just not the same, you know. Like he's
probably not going to start many games, is he?
Maybe not, but I was still surprised by that because I think he needs that. He loves a fan base loving him, and I thought that he would be a lot more aware of that. But I guess it doesn't matter who you are. It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It is. It's ludicrous sums, and actually, it's ludicrous that we can say, well, he's probably not going to start many games. They've just spent over £40 million on signing him to be a sub, which is probably what he's going to be. It is just craziness.
Did we find out about a sell-on? Because Brighton don't buy shit, do they? So you'd think if Georginio does anything there, then and the sort of business they do, it's not within. It wouldn't be too mental if he went somewhere for 60 million, you know.
No, Tony Bloom's one of the best owners in football, isn't he? You know, if you look at, I think they owe him £500 million. He's not looking for any of it back.
Well, that's what I mean. They're probably one of the best run clubs in the world. It's just a shame their fan base is so awful. So there's another club out there that deserve to be run like that. Can you imagine? You know, it looks so great from a distance, and you just think you see these people. A Brighton player, an amazing Brighton player, will score a massive goal against someone big in the Premier League, and the camera scans around the stadium, and you just see all these families waving seagulls and just clapping like it's a boundary at Lord's. It's just like Georgie's not getting up for that, you know. He's not getting out of bed for that. So
he needs the chaos of the South Stand and the cop going absolutely lula. That's what he gets off on, isn't it?
Yeah, that's when he does weird stuff, and then we love it. But I don't know. I think it'll be a bit tame. But like you say, he probably won't play a lot anyway.
Just to kind of go off Georgie, because let's be honest, he's not one of our fucking players anymore. I thought this was brilliant last night. Aaronson and Gnonto swapping over and back, crying out for Gnonto in a more central role. Me personally, anyway. And I thought he was fantastic when he started playing in the middle as well. Offered a very, very different dimension to how we kind of build play as well, you know.
Well, it's hard to defend against, and that's what I mean about being a bit more diverse in attack and swapping those things around. We're going to get plenty of space on the edge of the box. Gnonto is more than capable of scoring from outside of the box, and if he is playing centrally, he's someone that can score with both feet, getting plenty of shots away. It bodes pretty well, and it was good. It was good to see that, and I think it's good that you're sort of seeing maybe some lessons learned from Farke from last season, and like we said about unlocking defenses, seeing your team do that and being a bit dynamic with swapping around is only a good thing, so long as your defense stays intact. Anyway,
well, like we pushed them very, very high up the pitch, didn't we? We pushed them very high up the pitch. At one point, Rodon and Struijk were sitting back in their half, sitting on the halfway line nearly. And we still manage, like we've been, like you said, Lou, we've kind of had the scenario where we've not been able to break teams down in the past. But last night, when we pressed Sheffield Wednesday back so far, we were able to find the spaces because the movement off the ball was a lot quicker. There was a lot of one-touch passing, lots of little intricate one-touch passing. Now, some of it didn't come off, some of it did, but when it did, it looked fantastic because we only tried it in the final third.
But that's why I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. Aaronson in tight situations is going to get knocked off the ball because of his size, but Aaronson in space, you also have to get near him. You know, the goal that he scored, he was the one that broke down the right, played the lovely pass into the middle, and that was Aaronson in space. I don't think it matters physically. If he's in those tight situations, he is going to, be physically dominated occasionally. But if we can get him in space, he's massively dangerous.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So back on to the second half, because I took us completely off piste. Karl, it actually looks like in the momentum graph, like we scored against the run of play. Did it feel that way early in the second half?
I don't think so. We finished the first half fairly dominant, and we didn't. No, I don't think so. I think when we scored, we were applying pressure from the get-go. We weren't trying to ease ourselves into the second half. It was like we'd just gone off and had oranges for 2 or 3 minutes and come back on again because the momentum was still there. We'd actually started to build on what we'd done in the first half rather than sitting back and kind of easing into it again. And that's something that we were kind of missing last season as well. When we were very dominant in games, we wouldn't continue that momentum in the second half until maybe 15 minutes in, when we were kind of, oh shit, these guys are coming at us now and we're on the back foot. We need to implement what we were doing at the end of the first half. But last night, I think when we scored, I think we deserved it. They didn't come out of the blocks at all. We literally took up where we left off in the first half. And to say that, I think we were very deserving of the goal when we got it. And to look at it and think, was it a fluke or anything like that? I don't think so. I think it was
every team normally has somebody that you would at least worry about a little bit. Like Preston are a horrendous team, but they had Liam Miller last season who basically played well both times he played against us. Sheffield Wednesday didn't have anybody really last night that worried us. I know the quality is probably not going to be as good in the Championship this year, and there are a few teams losing some big players. So long may this continue, where teams turn up to play against us and nobody plays well, because they looked bang average last night. There wasn't anyone in that team that I was like, like when Smodic scored against Leeds, against Ellen Road last night, it was a player that we feared before the game because he was in form. Oh, of course he scores. Of course he scores against Leeds. That it didn't feel like that last night. And, that might have gone now with, no Jack Clark at Sunderland and whatever. So hopefully in the next sort of 10 days, everyone can sell their good players so we don't have anyone to worry about.
You are right, though, actually.
It's only fair. Let Leeds win the league and then it's fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you consider all of the best players in the teams that we were playing against last season, you are right. Smodic was one. Is it Fabinho that was at Hull? They didn't do much against us, and actually, I didn't think he played particularly well, but he scored. And it did seem that we would go to these places.
Was an exception as well, wasn't he?
He's brilliant. Yeah, no, that's fair. He was poor against us and had a good season overall. It was 17 goals or something for them. It's quite remarkable at that point. Okay, yeah. So just the shape of the second half, it felt dead easy at that point, didn't it? We were 2-0 up and we were coasting. It didn't look like they were really doing much. I think there was one header they had that he wasn't even facing goal. He kind of just hit it off the back of his head. Meslier was scrambling a little bit. 1 or 2 balls across the box where Aaronson had given the ball away in midfield and they turned it over. But nothing really that concerned. The question, there was one stat that popped up. I think it's 114 now, but I don't know if you saw the stat of 112 corners without scoring a goal from them. Is just an absolute mental stat.
That doesn't include pre-season though, does it? Because we scored from a corner in pre-season. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, just official games, league games. Yeah.
But
we have looked a lot more dangerous from them with Struijk back in the team. He's had some good opportunities,
and I think it will be soon. I'd like Rodon to score from corner at some point.
They should be getting 5 or 6 each a season, shouldn't they? They really should be. Going up for corners.
If they do, that's massive because it didn't happen last year.
Yeah. I think the only two we got nothing from midfield until the last game of the season to do it, and then Ampadu scored 2 when he were playing in defence. He didn't score from midfield, but when he were playing in defence, he got a couple.
I think it's likely grew up like a couple of free kicks as well. That free kick that hit the bar against Pompey.
Yeah, he was unlucky, wasn't he?
Yeah. I mean, that one against Norwich in the playoff semis was. I still don't really know how that sort of looped in, but you can say it was a good free kick, but he can clearly ping one. So.
I did put out a tweet there last week saying that Struijk is going to get 10 plus goals if he stays fit.
Yeah.
I definitely
I think might be a stretch.
I genuinely, I don't think it's that much of a stretch considering how dangerous he is from corners and set pieces. You know, he's like he should have had 2 or 3 already, including his penalty.
He's had 5 or 6 chances. Should have had 2 or 3, and he's got none other than a penalty.
Yeah,
so
but it's early doors. 3rd game in, and he's already had that many chances, and he's already scored one. So.
And third post probably going to be good for a few goals, possibly as well.
He was unlucky not to get an assist, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'd nearly put him down for most assists in our team this year. Perhaps he was the most assisted, he assisted the most goals last year from January, along with Luke Ayling. He got 8 or 9, didn't he? So imagine if he finds that form going forward, like he'd be an animal. Like,
yeah, I mean, even if Ayling still played for us, I think he would still score goals. But shit, I'm actually a defender.
Yeah.
That's a long way back to our own box.
Zimmer frame.
Yeah,
that's why it looked so remarkable when Jed Spence first came in. If you remember, there was a challenge that Spence was able to make in our box that Ayling would have been 20 yards away from, and we all went ooh. And then he was shit. but that first impact that he had for just 15 minutes when Ayling had to go off because he couldn't run anymore, he couldn't move. I think we are looking to get that from on the Firpo front. I think the assist is a good shout. I think double figures from a defender, a centre back would be remarkable, but. Who's to say, especially at this level?
It'll only be Struijk if that happens, and that's probably with 5 or 6 penalties potentially over the course of the season, and a few headers would be nice. Bryn
Which we
said
might
about
get, because we are going to dominate time.
Which he does. He does have a bit of a 50p
head. You could name a couple of players with 50p heads sometimes.
He's missed a couple of bad ones over the years.
Yeah. He got a powerful one against Arsenal the first season we were back up at the
awesome.
Emirates.
And it hasn't happened since.
No, but there's that potential there as well, you know. It's all about potential.
Yeah, but Meslier had a stormer against Arsenal and his distribution was brilliant and he looked like he wasn't going to get beaten.
Oh, was that was the FA Cup game? We were like, this guy is insane.
Yeah. Danny Mills and Alan Shearer are waxing lyrical about him, like, and it was like, sound, but you know.
Yeah. Robbie Gott started in midfield that day.
He did.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah.
Bielsa would have obviously made him into a right old player. And now I think he's a Barrow or something like that now.
Yeah. Look, sure. Each to their own.
Coming back to the players that we do have and the game that we did see.
Yeah, Robbie Gott's not getting many mentions on podcasts, is he?
Not many, no. Given that how straightforward, I suppose it was in the second half, and given that we'd had 3-4 bookings, both of our wingers were on bookings. Did it feel like? And thank you very much to Willy Gnonto for winning me some money on that. Did it feel like the subs were a bit late, given how easy it was, or do you commend not changing it while it's working, given how weak the bench was?
I think he did all right with the old substitutions. If I'm honest, I think that. I don't even think I think he wouldn't have made subs if we'd conceded. I think he'd have left it as it was, perhaps, because it was working defensively. We were sound. There was absolutely no need to kind of put anyone in for the sake of putting someone in, and disturbing how we were playing. So I think he did all right with the subs at the times he did, because we had the game won and we were very comfortable at that stage. And it gave a player like Aaronson extra game time, so he's got more in the legs now, and you know, it wasn't at the detriment to the team that Aaronson stayed on. He was quite good when he was on. So I think the subs for me, we've criticised him a lot for his timing of subs, but they've been at different points in games where we've needed something more going forward, and he's left it too late. But yesterday, we didn't need anything going forward. We just needed someone to come on for the last 10 minutes and be solid. And like Lou said, Gelhardt, come on, close down that ball, try and get into the game a little bit and see what you can do. But I think overall his decisions around subs and tactically how we played was very good.
It's easy for us to say that, but like less scrutiny on Farke's subs when you're winning 2-0. If it's 2-1 and they're pressing for a second or an equaliser, then and you may be crying out for a defensive sub, he doesn't make it and they score, then I guess it's a different situation. But it's easy for us to be fine about his subs when you're winning, because it didn't really feel like we were desperate for them at any point. I think the test will be when there is maybe just a 1-goal cushion and you're crying out for something different, whether that's sort of, you know, trying to nullify their attack with another defender, or, you know, trying to sort of counter that and try and get further up the pitch with someone who's going to change the game. That will be what we want to see differently. And I think it was just too predictable with when his subs would be. And I think opposition managers can plan for the sorts of subs that he's making at certain points of the game. I think, like we've said, with like the dynamism in our midfield, the manager needs to be a little bit like that with who he brings on and when, be a little bit more, mysterious, I guess, about what we're going to do and when, because those are the times and the important parts of the game in the last 10, 20 minutes where, we sort of weren't really planning for this, and someone comes on and nicks an important goal. Farke will learn, hopefully, from his sub sort of criticism last year and just do something different. And I think depth, obviously, on the bench will offer that. I mean, if we've got Solomon not coming on, only used as an impact sub in these 10 games, then he's gonna deliver something, isn't he?
Yeah. And
I've seen his YouTube reel, and it's so obviously he's world class. So
yeah, but that again, like you were saying, it's a case of when we don't have the depth on the bench to, you know, I think Farke's decisions around substitutes so far this season is determined by what he has on the bench as well. I don't think we necessarily have that many on the bench that could turn a game in a positive manner if we needed to. Like, we're bringing on Pirou, we're bringing on Gelhardt, and we're bringing on Sam Byram last night. You know, they're not the kind of players who are going to change a game in a positive manner for you if you're looking for a goal, like you were saying, Lou. But
no,
when you leave the players on that are already on and they're having that influence on the game, I think it's probably best that we, you know, as substitutes were late, and a lot will come down to how strong the bench is for me in the following weeks.
I think people like Byram have a part to play in that. They win a lot of headers. But Byram wins a lot of headers. He does do some decent bits with the ball at his feet. I think he is a pretty good player to come on to close out a game. You know, he might not be starting games or anything like that. And he started really well, didn't he, last season, first sort of 15 games or whatever, and then he sort of died off a little bit.
It surprised me, to be fair. I thought he was somebody coming in to make up the numbers, and actually when he were playing, he were doing well. He did surprise me. The reason I were asking the question, though, around the late subs was less about the dynamic of the game and more about, is somebody going to get sent off because we can't afford to have a ban?
Oh, yeah, there's that too.
That was my only thinking, is Gnonto going to get himself sent off because these refs appalling and not giving him anything at all?
You know, Dan James is not going to be sent off many times, but Willy Gnonto is, you know, as your bet suggested, decent for a yellow card and, capable of rubbing a ref up the wrong way to get himself a red at some point. The way he handles himself on the pitch and the whinging, it can be very annoying, especially in a game that you're not playing very well, because, you know, it's just another thing for us to look at and moan about.
Get up! Get working. Dan James had put more work in than that.
Yeah, exactly. It's really easy for us to do that. And we could have done last night if we went 1-0 down. He did a lot of moaning. And he can be a bit unlucky, but I think it's just the way he carries himself. Referees are ignorant. They're not gonna be like, oh yeah, you've moaned now, so you're right. I'll give you a couple of free kicks next time in the next 10 minutes. They'll just think you ain't getting a free kick all day, Willy.
Yeah.
You
behave like that with me, you get nothing.
Yeah.
Behave like that, you're getting out.
So just a quick question then before we just spin through some of the comments. The man of the match was given to Mateo Joseph by Sky. Lou, your thoughts on that? Would you have gone with someone else? Are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'd have gone with Ampadu, to be honest. But who did that? Was it Andy Hinchcliffe?
It would have been, yeah.
So Andy Hinchcliffe has got excited by the pass. I don't think he had a bad game, but I don't think he was man of the match last night. But
it was 2 assists, isn't it? Yeah. If somebody's a striker and they score 2 goals, they get man at match, regardless as to whether they were the best player on the pitch, don't they?
I don't think there was a bad performance really on the pitch from Leeds. I think if you gave it to anyone, it wouldn't have been that weird last night. But attacking output, I guess Joseph makes sense. So yeah. But like I said earlier in the pod, I think Ampadu was class last night. He's so important for us.
He is. He really is. And just that right amount of shithouse, which I do like.
Yeah. Sort of like sly levels of shithouse, isn't it?
Yeah. Karl, your thoughts on that match?
I think there could have been more than 1 or 2 there, to be fair. Like Lou said there, Ampadu, obviously anchoring there in the midfield, was absolutely fantastic. And Joseph then with his persistent running and assisting 2 goals as well. But I think overall for me, because I was more of an attacking player when I played, and I would go for Joseph myself. I think the only thing his performance was lacking last night was that goal, and that would have cemented man of the match really. But I can understand why Big Lou was saying Ampadu as well. But for me, he's that even getting man of the match will give him a big boost for confidence levels as well. Shows that he is doing the right things. If he's been nominated man of the match, then he knows himself that what he's doing is right, and the output and the energy that he's given into the game is what's expected. So I think in terms of a confidence boost for a young player, I think Joseph Ampadu, he's established now at this stage in the day, and he's captain. So I think passing it round to the young players now at this stage is probably the best thing, especially the likes of Joseph. So just to give him that bit of extra confidence.
So for me, I'm absolutely not against Joseph getting it at all. And I rate Ampadu. Ampadu was my player of the season last season. I really rate him. The 2 names that I'd written down, though, are neither of those. The first was Dan James. He had, he scored 1. He had an involvement, a brilliant touch, and the amount of work he gets through is just unreal. And there were times even where their defender's got the ball and he's that quick. He's got in between the defender and the ball, and he's won a free kick from pretty much nothing that nobody else wins. And the other one was Struijk. I thought he was so solid. He did well. Yeah, all right. He should be a bit more of a goal threat, but he is a goal threat, and that's what we needed in the box. But the last 2 games he's played, 2 clean sheets, and he's looked really assured. And long may that continue. I think this is his level. I've not made a secret of it. The fact he's not a Premier League player for me, but he's a good Championship defender, and that's what we need him to be. So that's great.
He had some good games under Bielsa as a Prem centre back, but yeah, I think you're probably right in terms of the level.
So yeah, I mean, it almost seems like I'm damning with faint praise there. I think he played really well. He played really well last night, and
just
it's
not
the second
good enough.
game in a row.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that defensive solidity is something that they can build up, and when you come up against a Burnley or something, you've got a confident defence that are not leaking goals. 2 clean sheets on bounce at this level in a Yorkshire derby, and then away at somebody that's definitely going to be in and around the playoffs is not to be sniffed at. So I think that's positive.
100%.
See, one of the things for me with Struijk is that he's never had a consistent run in a side. He's never played a full season at centre back, and people forget that we actually bought him as a centre mid, not a centre back. And for him Yeah, he was bought as a centre mid. He wasn't bought as a centre back.
Which
No,
is
I'm not
weird
having any of
because
that.
he is a crap CDM.
Yeah, but this
He's
is the thing, like.
awful.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
He would have not made it as a professional footballer if he'd played it as a midfielder all the way through. He just would not.
Well, we bought him
He's
as a
as
midfielder.
good.
That's what I'm saying.
This is how good he was in there. He's as good as Robin Koch in midfield.
Yeah, but
And
I'm
I think
not
all
saying
three
he
of
was
us
any
are better
good.
than both of them.
I'm just saying. But like, yeah, I think with a full season under his belt and being able to contribute a lot more than he has, I don't think he ever played that many games really under Bielsa, because if it wasn't Cooper, it was Koch, and if Phillips wasn't out, he was either in the centre midfield, or then when he played under Marsh, he had him at fucking left back, and it was like, you're fucking
He had him
idiot
at right
anyway.
back at times.
Yeah, I was like, you're a fucking idiot anyway. Like, so we kind of expect that. But yeah, I think with a full season under his belt and building a good partnership with Rodon, I think I get what you're saying. He might not be Premier League level, but I think the level, I think he's Premier League level. He's like from maybe bottom half Premier League level, and very capable if he's got a good centre back beside him. And I think if him and Rodon can build that partnership now, I think it might flourish further down the line. You don't know.
Yeah,
maybe so. And it is one of those, the position he plays, he can't read a game, and I think that's the biggest issue that I have with him. He's never in right position, and he's too reactive, and he's too slow to be reactive as a player. That's something that I guess comes with experience, and he might get there over time. I think that in the tackle, in the air, in the opposition box.
I think that's how far, isn't it? You stick to Struijk's strengths, and he looks good, and that's what a good manager does.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not good at doing this, so I don't want you to do that. I want you to be in our final third. I want you to be passing the ball out to the wing backs and winning every single header, and a threat at set pieces. That's what you got to do. I think maybe even with Bielsa, he was like, Struijk's amazing. He's so good with the ball at his feet. He can ping passes. It was like it was all too much for him. So when it did break down, it looked horrendous. And the mistakes look even worse when you're just overloaded with stuff you're not capable of.
Yeah, and he had Firpo that at the time couldn't defend anything at all, and he were tracking Harry Kane over to fullback, which I get was probably the job he was given, was track your man and go 1-against-1 across the pitch. But so he had Firpo one side of him, and he had Robin Koch, who's the worst centre back since Rocky Jr. On the other side of him, and now he's got Rodon, so they're playing at a different level, but Rodon's quick.
Rodon reads the game well.
Difference. He does, and I think that's a big difference for Struijk. Is he's got somebody quick alongside him that can get him, that can back him up, so that if he goes in for a tackle, ball spins out of that tackle, and there's an attacker that Rodon can be there. And I think you look at Robin Koch, that Sean Gregan was quicker. I don't think that that helped Struijk at all, playing in that, especially with Melier behind him that just had hands like a sailor.
I'm going to stick my neck out here and say, if Struijk is injured and Verba's still at the club, I'd still rather play Ampadu. Despite saying how good he is in midfield, I would rather have Ampadu at centre back than Verba. I think Verba's crap.
I think that's more about mentality than anything.
I mean,
he doesn't have the stones for it.
Honestly, and nobody can say he's played too much football or not enough football. He played in the Euros. He played in the summer. That game he played against Borough was just a joke. He looked like Bamford playing centre back. It was just that bad. It was just like I wouldn't have him anywhere near a starting lineup. Struijk and Rodon are obviously the first choice, but I'm saying if whoever comes in, Verba's not. For me, doesn't come in at centre back first.
Yeah,
you move Ampadu straight back and play Rothwell in midfield or whoever we get.
And we can do that because Gruev's capable of being a defensive centre mid, and he's capable of doing that job. So
yeah,
the good thing is we've got those options, but I still really, really want to start in 8. That means that's more possible.
Yeah.
We really need that.
I think we never really got over the fact Kamara couldn't, shoot the ball at the goal, but for what he did and what he was, he did really well. I think he was a good player, but that looks. If we can get someone else in, even on loan, I think that probably still looks like good business. I don't think the meltdown come from the Kamara sale. Really, is he worth 8 million? Probably not. So
it wasn't a bad deal. It was just the volume of people going out, wasn't it? It wasn't
like
that
5 mil felt reasonable to buy him, but we wouldn't have spent 8 million on him, would we?
No, absolutely not. So cool. Okay, I'm just going to spin through some of the comments because people have been quite active there. So, and we always appreciate it. So I'm just going to skip through some of them. And Skip is the first one. So Gruev had a much more effective game. Struijk was a rock at the back. Just in terms of Gruev, Karl, you touched on him as well. Being asked to do something slightly different, a bit further forward from Ampadu, even when Ampadu's not dropping into the defence, he's the one of the two that's a bit further forward.
I liked it. I thought he offered an awful lot, and there was moments where he started going sideways and backways and whatnot, but it was, like we mentioned earlier, it was in a positive manner because we actually built from the back rather than just trying shite that didn't work. And I think, overall, I'd like to see him play a lot more further forward like that. But again, it also depends on the opposition at the time as well. Like, do we play like that against a Burnley or a Luton or, a team that'll be looking to, pardon me, to impose themselves on the game as much, But overall, I thought Gruev was fantastic yesterday and definitely more effective than previous games, I think.
Fair. Lou, play 5-4-1 at home, deserve everything they got, D-Dars. You having that?
Yeah, it was pretty negative from them. But
there's a lot of that just because it's sheer the fact that they got battered in the previous game and they didn't want to give too much away too early on.
They should have lost 4 or 5-0 last night. Not that that's a criticism or anything. We were brilliant last night, but not the genius everyone's saying. And you get these platforms that like to think they're sort of championship experts and whatever, and they like to be out there and they'll be like, Mark Robins is the best coach in the championship and Danny Roll's going to do bits with Sheffield Wednesday this year. And I mean, it's just baseless crap, really, isn't it? It's like you can't say stuff like that until there's been, a good few games. If Sheffield Wednesday are in the top 6 after 30 games, then Danny Roll has done bits with a bang average team. But
do you think it's that his downfall is that he is a bang average team? He's actually, quite good.
I mean, if you do stuff with a bang average team, like Mark Robins is a good coach, to be fair, but he hasn't got bang average players. Coventry are a pretty good team. They're apparently a bit of a bogey team for us now. That they will be important games for us this season against them. But yeah, I don't buy into it yet. I've not. They played completely differently against Sunderland. Like I think they completely underestimated them. Thought they could match them in an attacking sense, and they got absolutely battered. I don't know if that played a part in how they set up against us. Potentially, in that their confidence was a bit knocked from being bashed 4-0. I think perhaps if they did play against like similar setup against us last night, then we might have scored 4 or 5. But as it is, just take the 2-0. I think it was negative, but
fair enough. Sid says, morning guys, Bogle was good for me. Biggest problem was Mez's goal is decision making. So Karl, I'll come to you first on the first bit, and then Lou, I'll come to you. So Bogle playing well. He felt like he had to grow into the game though. You mentioned he were ball watching. It was mostly early on, wasn't it? And he seemed to get better through the game. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, up until the point where he got booked, I think your man had him on toast for large portions of any kind of one-on-ones. But once he got booked, he seemed to be far more composed when he was squaring up to the guy. When the ball was coming in around the back, it just it was obviously because he was being cautious because he'd already been booked. But why not just be like that for the whole fucking game and not get booked? You know what I mean? You're on a knife edge the whole time when you're booked. But again, it seemed to kind of spur him on to not be lunging in and not be caught in around the back. So I did I'm not saying he wasn't good. I'm just saying he was ball watching Bogle just for the first 15 or 20 minutes. You know what I mean? And after that, then it was.
If that sticks, that's all down to you.
Yeah, well, I can't help that. But I do think he played well. Absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
I
We
think he
just
did.
abbreviate that to BWB. We're watching both. BWB. He was a bit of a BWB last night.
BWB, yeah. Yeah, BBW.
Lou, your thoughts on Melior's decision making?
It didn't worry me. Obviously, the simple equation with Meslier is shots on target against him equals goals. So if we can keep those down to a minimum, then we're in a good place. But Meslier for me wasn't an issue last night. I think if you're another club, you probably look at Meslier as one of the best goalkeepers in the league. If you're a Leeds fan and you've seen the calamity over the last couple of seasons, then you're not in that camp. I don't know what to make of him. He is incredibly irritating. The amount of times he gets beaten at the near post, but I don't think he's up for criticism from last night, to be honest.
There were a couple of times for me, he should have caught it, and his decision was to punch. And there were one where it was kind of like below, it was at waist height, and he's punching it, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Just catch it."
He dived at it, didn't he, and punched it?
Yeah. So I don't know if that's what was meant by his decision making in terms of that, but
his distribution was a lot better last night.
I think all teams have that. No goalkeeper makes every correct decision in every game. He's, I don't think you can do he's still young sort of thing anymore. He's had that many appearances for Leeds. He doesn't get away with that anymore.
I think he's 24 now. He's older than our captain.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think some people just think time stands still, and when he comes here, he stays 21 forever.
Yeah, he's younger than our captain. Older than our captain, sorry. It's crazy, actually, how showed Ampadu is at his age, really, isn't it? To be 23, club captain, and playing the way that he does, he's great. Lou, you've spoken. In fact, you both have, but Lou, I'll come to you on this one. Aaronson was okay last night. I'll just be straight up with it. I don't agree. I thought he was shit. I thought he was really, really bad. He gave the ball away in areas that allowed them to get at us, and if they were any better, they could have punished us on that. He works hard, and he covers a lot of ground, and I think that was important for us. And he took his goal well, absolutely not taking that away from him. But I've seen things like, goal aside, he was brilliant. For me, quite a long way from brilliant. I think he's got a lot of work to do to build himself up to not retribution. That's not the word I'm trying to think of. But I need another coffee.
Yeah, I mean, he has got some making up.
I need another coffee.
So for me, not what we need from him. And if we sign a 10, he's the first one out of the side for me, I'm afraid.
Well, maybe that was, I mentioned this sort of steely determination about his point about really wanting to help the team. He does have that determination. I think he was really tried too hard when he came on against Pompey, and I think he's headed in the right direction. And I think he's always going to be, maybe not so much as Bamford, if I have anything to do with it, but he's always going to be a player, much like Georgie last season, a player that does something a bit different, has a bit of flair. He's going to be criticised a lot, but I think his output, goals and assists, is going to be decent. Ultimately, last night, he was clinical when we needed him to be in a game that we didn't struggle. And I think if he keeps getting games for Leeds and he utilises all that space he's being given, then I think he will be a consistent player. But like you say, Gilly, it is difficult. I mean, maybe there are a little bit of sour grapes still about how we feel about him, but I sort of like the fact, and you don't get loyalty in football anymore, as we know. I like the fact that he's come back and said, I still owe these guys, and I did go somewhere else. Nobody else has done that. And I think that goes a long way already, regardless of anything. Oh, he's got to do this, he's got to do that. It took Gnonto 4 or 5 goals last season for anybody to be like, well, we've forgiven him, sort of thing, for his shit attitude. You're not really getting that from Aaronson, attitude-wise, and I think that will go a long way for people changing their opinions. And I hope you're one of them, Gilly, because he is important. Whatever way you look at it, he is a good player at this level. Whether if that's all you're going to look at it as, it's not. He might in the future want a shot with us in the Premier League if we get there. Probably isn't that quality of player, but he should tear up this division. He knows it. And maybe the way he was last night, he was maybe even disappointed with his own performance a little bit last night, if he's being mega critical. But I think most fans are happy with Aaronson last night.
Yeah, I think his redemption is isn't there a film called The Road to Redemption, and it's a fucking long film as well, and his redemption is definitely coming along. It's like Lou said, and you said there, it's like 5 goals nearly for us to kind of look at Gnonto and go, fair play, man. Yeah, get back in the game there now. He's already got 2. He's put in a better performance tonight than he did, or last night than he did against, like you mentioned, Lou, Portsmouth when he came on.
Yeah,
I think it was more headless chicken stuff against Portsmouth, but he seemed more controlled in what he wanted to do.
It was that
tonight.
sort of game as well, to be fair to him. The miss is pretty unforgivable, but in general, we got a point. And I think at that point, if you look at what happened after it, if we'd have lost 3-2 at home to Pompey, followed by a 3-0 loss at home to Borough, I think the makeup of our season would have looked a lot worse than it does right now, considering the players that left after the Borough game as well. Like, it's fine margins, isn't it? And I think we've sort of come out of it relatively unscathed.
Yeah.
And I think you were right as well when you mentioned about, the players finding out that Rutter was going.
Yeah.
Just before the game, it's going to be impactful. And, he was lined up to be the talisman for the season.
Many of those players were thinking, if we don't do something here, we're pretty bollocks for this season. Like, he was pretty key. And not so much with his goals. It was just, was it about 1 million assists last season or whatever it was?
15 or something.
Yeah, and when you break it down and they go, right, we've sold Somerville and Georginio, that's 51 goals and assists combined. Of course you're panicking. As a fan, you're going, where's that coming from now then? So.
And I think that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Skip says, Gnonto has a very good game at 10, but as a priority, we still need to bring a recognised true 10. Karl, you mentioned this earlier in the pod. He spent most of his time on the wing, though, didn't he? I know that they did do a bit of swapping and he played inside, but he spent most of his time on the wing. But that's important to be able to have that flexibility, like Lou said earlier in the pod, isn't it?
Oh, I think so very much. Like, I think you could see there was a good understanding between him and Firpo already kind of coming along there. There was plenty of talking between the two of them, but then when he went inside, Firpo did push on a little bit further to cover that space on the wing. So I think the understanding between players playing in positions and when they do move around, I think it is very important. Like you said, the flexibility of having a player that can actually go from playing on the wing to be quite influential in the 10 if he needs to be in parts of the game, not necessarily the whole game, but very much parts of the game like he did last night. I think it's very important, and I think with Gnonto in the 10, like I've mentioned previously, we bought him as a striker and he's used to playing down the middle. I think playing out wide is a different thing for him, but I think the number 10 role or a central role for him is it suits him down to the ground. But I also appreciate that he plays very well out wide, cutting in on his right and stuff like that. But I thought whenever he did switch inside and play in the 10, I thought he was, taking the ball on, he was bringing players into it, he was switching play here and there, and I thought it just proves that we do have that flexibility in there. You could put Aaronson out on the left then, and he could do the same job because he cuts in on the right and stuff like that. So I think Gnonto played quite well when he was in there. He wasn't there the whole time, like you mentioned, but the points of the game where he did, I thought he was very good.
Yeah, and showed that ability to do it. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how much we know about Solomon, but Mr. Dodo's in the comments saying the medical's underway from the sounds of it. I think from a viewpoint of the actual deal and the makeup of the deal. So, Lou, I'll come to you for this one. You're in danger of being in a Ben White situation with the loan, but for me, I think what you're looking at is a risk-free strategy of getting somebody in that might or might not have an impact, might or might not stay fit. If they don't, they go back to the parent club anyway. Yeah. And he's had quite a lot of fitness question marks, but if he can come in and be impactful, then that's brilliant.
Well, quite simply, if they're looking at offloading him, he's not part of Big Ange's plans at Spurs anyway.
Oh, he's just trying to prove his fitness, isn't he? Because he's had an operation as well.
I think that will depend on how we utilise him. In terms of the structure of the deal, it looks like we're going to be covering the wages as well, which is quite a big deal. So I guess that there'll be a little bit of, maybe something there in terms of how he is expecting to be used as a player. You know, it could be a situation where Farke's like, this guy's too good to leave out, and if he is fully fit, he might be one of those players who goes straight into the side. I don't know. I don't know how it works with that. But certainly, based on the world he scored against us for Fulham, he scored some good goals for Spurs. He looks like a class player. We have to be pleased with that. As long as it doesn't go the same way as Jed Spence, hopefully his attitude isn't as awful as his clearly was. To not see out a loan at a club is pretty poor. But Rodon worked out, and he was from Spurs, so it just all of it looks good. I know I completely on our WhatsApp chat last night, I was joking about Paul O'Keefe being a nobody, and then somebody with some credibility in Fabrizio Romano basically said the medical's happening 4 minutes later. It's easy to be pessimistic, isn't it, when you're linked with somebody of Premier League standard when you are Leeds and you're mostly selling at the moment. So that's where my negativity comes from. I'm really working through it to try and push out the negativity as much as I can. But signing people like Solomon certainly helps with that. And even better if he comes in and hits the ground running straight away, which he should, if he's anywhere near fit, which we don't know about. But if he's fit enough to pass a medical, I assume he's ready to go.
Yeah.
So I have starred one here that's only just come in, but I'm going to mention it now so that we get the negativity out of the way before the end of the pod and we don't end up on a negative point.
Okay.
Jason Lee says, still got a feeling Gnonto leaves. We are too happy at the minute. And as you say, it is easy for us to be negative as Leeds fans. We've been burnt a lot in the past.
Yeah, I can see Jason's point there. There's until the end of August, there's going to be that niggly feeling, and I saw a few people say last night that Gnonto put in a performance that would definitely get him a move. Yeah, that kind of thing. So I understand it.
Don't score until the end of August. Let other guys score some goals.
Yeah. Do your utmost best not to score, but be influential at the same time. You know.
That's literally meltdown if that happens, and that's probably me genuinely having a different journey to the Etihad Stadium on a Saturday instead. You know, it's just way easier.
Yeah.
That is when if Gnonto is sold, I will probably convert full time to Man City. It's the only way I'm going to enjoy football again.
Fucking hell, that's heavy, Lou.
It's heavy, but it's tongue in cheek. I don't really mean it. I love Leeds.
We're talking about backtracking. So Skip says Gilly's backtracking deep down here, doors of 49ers. I can't let that go without comment. I just can't. No. I still think that GFH and Ridsdale aside, they are the worst thing to have happened to our club in terms of ownership for a long, long time. A lot of that is because of the Red Bull investment that they've allowed to happen.
One thing I will say about that is that, like any football fan, we change our minds so quickly. So it's like, last season, it was, I just love how they do business under the radar. This year, they've carried on doing that. We've gone, you're not signing anyone. What is going on?
You're not even saying anything.
Fucking selling our best players.
So, they can't, maybe that side, I don't think every decision they've made is been positive. I've been frustrated like you, Gilly, to be honest. Yeah. But, I wouldn't say I adore the 49ers. But I feel like there probably will be a lot better set up for the Premier League as opposed to whatever we're doing with FFP and farting around with the transfer business and the Championship. It's clearly a lot harder to pull good players to a Championship team. Regardless of being a big club, nothing in transfers is ever guaranteed, and we will have pull in the Premier League. And I think that's when they can sort of, flex their muscles a little bit more. It is very difficult in the Championship, and we are still in a relatively luxurious position for this. But this is the last year we get to do that. If we don't go up this season, there is obviously tons of pressure on it. We are genuinely going to be just an average Championship team.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's rubbish. But that is the reality of it, and that is, that is potentially the situation we're in next season. But it's a long way off and a long season. So
it is. It absolutely is. just to try and wrest some more positivity back, let's laugh at Wilder. Bryn says Sheffield United have a chance of imploding. The Wilder factor, they've signed well, but their depth is really poor. Just to add on to that before I come to either of you, I don't know if you saw Wilder's comments about Ratsaki. He's come out and said that what Leeds had said about the mandatory appearances and that sort of thing is pure fabrication.
He's just making stuff up, isn't he? He's just
we do appear to live rent-free, as the kids on Twitter might say.
If you're melting down now about transfer business, what are you going to be like in the build-up to the game we're playing against each other? Like, he's going to completely lose his shit, and it's
I'll be honest with you. If I had a face that looked like a ham sandwich, I'd be pissed off all the time as well. Like,
mate, even his attitude in the Premier League was just disgraceful. The whole you're speaking to a Premier League manager thing. His attitude is just ridiculous. Like, his ego is through the roof, and I don't know why. Like,
his conduct was that of a Sunday League manager.
He was. Demanding respect from mediocre local journalists is just just calm down, mate.
You've not earned it, man. You've got your fucking side relegated, and
your team have about 4 points on the board in the Prem, at the bottom. You know, you're not going to be getting respect because you don't earn it by not winning games.
Yeah, exactly it. But anyway,
fair.
Enough about ham sandwich face.
Just the last one that we've started is Skip saying the link up between midfield and attacking line in the final third was much better last night.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to expand on that. Have we got anything that we can expand on that with? Because I think it's just a true statement.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered it, really, haven't we?
Yeah. The movement was very much improved.
In spite of Aaronson playing, it did feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the big positive is the fact that we did it against a back five, which we'll be playing against plenty of back fives this season.
Yeah. Fair shout.
Very good.
Fair shout. Actually, just Skip's made one last point. Wilder may not be in charge by the time we play them.
The point is
that.
But that's big. That'll be a big meltdown from them.
Yeah.
I hope that Raksaki player that they've got after all the fuss is shit.
He does seem highly rated. You know, Palace were absolutely not entertaining selling him, which tells you quite a lot.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Just one last thing for me, and I'm just going to waffle while I do it because I've not got it ready. Is just to speak about Andy's Man Club and what they've got going on at the moment. So I'll just come to each of you. So any final statements before we wrap up?
No, rambled on enough, I think, today.
Yeah. That and it's a lot more positive going into the game against Hull next week.
Yeah. It's amazing what a win does, isn't it?
Fucking right, man. And it hasn't ruined our bank holiday weekend.
I don't think we're getting carried away. Any of us are getting carried away. We're obviously pleased with the win. We've got a win on a Friday. Going into a bank holiday weekend is always way better, feeling-wise. But we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. Let's get 3 or 4 more wins like this and just, get some
3 or 4 more players in.
3 or 4 more players in, get some momentum, and then maybe we can start talking about how brilliant we are and get those positive vibes going, and just stop me from getting on that motorway to go and see Man City play at home because I really don't want to. I will.
Yeah.
Fairs. So just the last thing to mention is a reminder that Andy's Man Club, I've got a running club each Wednesday evening. Meet at 5:45 for a 6 p.m. start, and you meet at 5 Ways at the Recovery Academy on Westfield Road in Woodhouse. And on the 15th of September, they're doing a Rob Burrow walk in memory of him. It's around here in Moortown, and it's in the shape of a rhino, which is pretty cool. They're going to be meeting at the Roundhay Park Gates on Princes Avenue at 10:30 a.m. for an 11 a.m. start. So please feel free to join them. And just a reminder, that's on the 15th of September. So that being said, let's go enjoy your bank holiday weekend. Thank you very much, Big Lou, for joining us. Thank you, Karl, for your time.
Lou.
Anytime, lads.
Thank you, everybody, for getting involved in the comments. It does make a big deal because it helps us. It helps us stay on for over an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Thanks, lads. Have a good week.
2-0 loss, and it was half that time, isn't it?
Yeah, we thought that would a 0-0 draw last week, man. We ended up going for an hour and 10 minutes. The shite we were talking was unreal, but anyway.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you soon.